On its way back, U-455 sinks a second ship, 13,900 tons. Commander Hans-Heinrich Giesler isn't a U-boat ace yet. But 2 destroyed warships makes this first Atlantic mission a definite success.
They greeted us with music. The head of the flotilla was there waiting on the pier to greet us. As soon as we were standing to attention on the deck, he came on board and shook everyone's hand. I was given photos from Saint-Nazaire, where you could see Giesler being greeted with his crew. There were women round them. This really happened. He's a hero. He should receive a hero's welcome.
It was a wonderful feeling. Imagine, you've spent the last 60 days in the same place, the same narrow space, in one room. Only one room. You managed to make it back, alive and in one piece, and you say to yourself, I'm home. It's a very emotional moment. Wouldn't you agree? You feel so free. You do whatever you want.
U-455's crew stays in the hotels of La Baule or in the rest camps in the countryside. Enjoying the beach, sports, and cabarets, the submariners receive very special treatment. Early 1942 is a great period for the propaganda machine, which makes the most of these successes. However, this situation will not last for long. Roosevelt takes stock of the damages inflicted by the U-boats. In response, he announces a shipbuilding program of 8 million tons per year. The war has just gone industrial. In Saint-Nazaire, U-455 is checked, repaired, repainted, and ready to take off after a 2-month break. This time, its mission isn't so simple. America's new strategy has forced commercial ships to travel in convoys, protected by warships. Donitz's invincible U-boats cannot approach these convoys. Attacking them seems impossible. On board U-455, time is spent observing Allied ships, but not attacking them. The mood is glum, until the radio operator receives a message: Strong's Sunday boy arrived. Gerhard Schwartz and Helmut Spitzer learn through the boat's PA system that Commander Giesler has just had a son.
The commander was in great spirits and not at all interested in hunting or sinking enemy ships. He had an heir. He was very proud, and we all shared in his happiness.
Wir haben dann mit ihm gefreut.
Er heißt Waldemar und küsst wunderbar. Ach, der Mann ist mein Ruin, aber ich liebe ihn.
After 50 days back at sea, U-455 hadn't launched a single torpedo. The submarine returns to the base at Saint-Nazaire with an empty scorecard. Admiral Donitz customarily greets each commander returning home. He listens to the detailed account of the mission hour by hour. Those who don't seem to be up to the task are transferred out. Was this the case for Commander Giesler? There is nothing in the archives to indicate this. However, within days, a new captain, Hans-Martin Scheibe, is named commander of the submarine.
Scheibe was much more aggressive. We joked that his neck was itching for the Knight's Cross. The commanders were obsessed with it. They all wanted the Knight's Cross.
Das waren ja Kommandanten, echt, die waren da drauf ganz geil und wollten das Ritterkreuz haben.
Despite his unbending nature and his thirst for battle, Commander Hans-Martin Scheibe will have new problems to face. It is late 1942 and the tables are turning. The Allies have begun to mobilize. Germany has lost the upper hand in all theaters of operation. In Stalingrad, her forces are surrounded. In Africa, she suffers setback after setback. The submarine bases on the French coast are bombarded. The Allied planes attack the U-boats as soon as they leave port.
They wanted to paralyze the submarines, both in Lorient and Saint-Nazaire, to stop them from going out.
We asked ourselves why. What was going on? Had the British or the Americans suddenly become so smart and powerful that their only concern was with our submarines?
Is it because he is now part of Hitler's inner circle that Donitz doesn't want to disappoint the Führer? Admiral Donitz persists, despite the difficulties faced by his crews. For its 7th mission, U-455 is sent off to the American coast. After several weeks, the submarine will need to connect with its supply ship. In the past, this has been a simple procedure.
We had enough ammunitions and supplies to stay out at sea for 4 to 5 weeks. But after 3 extra days, we were cutting it close. We got a message informing us that a supply ship had been located somewhere in the area.
This time, things didn't go as planned.
There was a mass of dark clouds overhead, and the plane was flying inside these clouds. The pilot was so clever that when the cloud mass started to break up, he flew straight towards us in bright sunlight so that the sentinels and officers would be blinded. With this blinding trick, he was sure he would succeed. If his aim was good, we would be finished.
How did U-455 escape the Allied planes? The memories of this mission are quite foggy for Gerhard Schwarz and Helmut Spitzer. The logbook doesn't contain any real detail of this attack either. So Luke and Mark have decided to contact Tim Mulligan, Director of Military Archives in Washington. They want to know if the Allies recorded any interaction between their planes and U-455. Tim Mulligan has found a report written by Lieutenant R.L. Stearns, the pilot who attacked the submarines. He describes an extremely violent combat.
The appearance of the aircraft immediately alerted the Germans to their situation. They threw up a wall of anti-aircraft fire. 3 more American aircraft were then vectored to the area. The supply U-boat stayed on the surface almost to the last. Stearns made the final attack himself, and he observed a massive explosion underwater. He believed he had sunk the supply U-boat. From subsequent research done in the 1990s, we now believe that during the early stages of the combined Allied action, U-455 followed what was always a common sense dictum when you're under air attack: dive and live.
U-455 has miraculously escaped from the fighting. What might sound like a happy ending actually marks a turning point for these submarines. The U-boat, once considered to be a merciless hunter, has become an easily destroyed prey.
The consequence of the Allied victory at sea in the spring and summer of 1943 meant that the flow of supplies and troops and equipment from North America to the British Isles would be uninterrupted, essentially, by the U-boat menace. This was the precondition that Roosevelt, Churchill, and all the Allied leaders had realized was necessary before an invasion of Europe could be launched.
The U-455 returns to the base in Lorient with a damaged tower. The sailors no longer feel victorious, and the water suddenly looks like lead. Bad news circulates silently from one boat to the next. The last Mediterranean ports under Field Marshal Rommel's control fall one by one, passing under Allied command. Dönitz is forced to reposition his U-boats once again. U-455 has escaped British and American forces in the North Sea, in the middle of the Atlantic, and along the African coast. It must now join the fight in the Mediterranean. On January 6, 1944, Gerhard Schwarz and Helmut Spitzer leave Lorient. In the early days of the war, the submarines were cheered on by the crowd as they left port. Today, they depart in silence. The two men look out to sea as a new obstacle rises in front of the boat's stem: Gibraltar.
For German submarines during World War II, passing Gibraltar was a real challenge. The strait's very narrow. It's a British fort whose team of escorts, planes, and radar are on the watch 24 hours a day.
This expedition is once again an ordeal. The British have sunk 9 U-boats in the past few months. 10 others had to abandon the idea of passing through the strait following heavy combat. How can U-455 succeed where so many have failed? Given the amount of enemy traffic, Commander Scheibe decided to pass through the strait at night and take advantage of the currents entering the Mediterranean.
We couldn't navigate with the diesel engines. We had to move in complete silence, propelled only very slightly by the electric engines. We had to wear cork-soled shoes so as not to make any noise when walking on the metal. We weren't allowed to speak either. Succeeding in passing through Gibraltar was a truly heroic act in those days.
After 40 hours underwater, U-455 finally surfaces. The oxygen level inside the submarine is very low and the men are close to fainting. But who cares? They made it through the strait. They are returning from their 9th mission. Is it because they escaped great danger, or are they simply relieved? In any event, a curious bond has developed between the men and their boat. An order awaits Helmut Spitzer and Gerhard Schwarz upon their arrival in Toulon. High Command informs them that they will be returning to Germany to enroll in sub-officers training. They leave U-455 to its destiny. What happened during U-455's last mission? The answer to this question isn't found in German archives. It isn't in British or American archives either. The circumstances surrounding the sinking of U-455 are still unknown.
There are several possible causes for the sinking of a submarine. The first and most plausible one, in my opinion, would be a mine. Then there's the possibility of an air attack or a sea attack by a destroyer.
If we could find an anchor, it would support the mine theory.
At this point, the investigation has become more complex for Luc, Mark, and Axel. Additional means are required to move forward. The COMEX, a French maritime exploration company, has provided the team with precious help by making the Remora available to them. As the mission's technical expert, Axel has been chosen to lead the study of the boat. This is a first for him. He has never done a wreck dive.
When I was a child, I always thought, wow, it must be impressive to dive. And now I'm going into the blue. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic, yeah.
Here it is. That's the boat. It's incredible.
Hi, Axel. How's everything going down there?
It's a marvelous sight. I didn't think it was possible to have such an incredible view of a boat at the bottom of the sea. This is one of the most beautiful moments of my life. I'm 400 feet under the sea, and I can practically touch the boat just by reaching out.
Can you see anything?
We're inspecting the tower, and we've noticed that the periscope's extended slightly by about 12 to 15 inches. That is rather unusual.
This is a first clue. The periscope was up when the boat sunk, which means that the submarine was navigating close to the surface at the time.
Axel? Can you see any signs of an explosion on the boat?
We are now right above the seafloor. At least 30 feet of the stern appear to be missing. The absence of such a large section of the stem would indicate that a strong explosion had taken place and possibly destroyed the entire rear of the boat.
Perfect, danke.
After inspecting the submarine for over an hour, Axel is able to offer a more detailed picture of the last moments of U-455.
There is an essential point that needs to be taken into account, I believe. The boat is pointing upwards at a 45-degree angle. This means that there was still some air in the front, at least initially. The idea is a gruesome one because even if there was air remaining in this part of the boat, the crew had virtually no chance of survival due to the steepness of the slope. Imagine that inside the boat people could barely move around under normal circumstances. In this position, it would be like climbing to the top of a mountain. There must have been panic and confusion. Escape would have been impossible, assuming there were even any survivors left on board.
In Genoa, the Remora diving expedition has not gone unnoticed. Paola Bottini, in charge of underwater archaeological surveys in Italy, remembers a recent discovery. During the exploration of a field of amphorae located not far from the wreck, divers stumbled upon a strange object, apparently a mine. The existence of this mine sheds considerable light on the circumstances surrounding the sinking. Thanks to this discovery, the investigation is about to take another unexpected turn. Axel Niesel has been able to find German, Italian, and British mine maps of the zone. These maps have a big surprise in store for the three historians.
The boat had received the order to rally to this spot for 2,200 hours, so it could be escorted by a surface ship. Unfortunately, on the way, the submarine encountered a German minefield.
Didn't the commander have a map of the German mine locations?
Apparently not. This information was obviously top secret, and it seems like someone forgot to provide the submarine with these maps. And this tragic oversight caused the death of 50 men who, spotting the coastline in the distance, surely thought they had made it home.
After escaping underwater grenades and resisting Allied air attacks over 9 missions, U-455 was in fact the victim of this invisible trap. The team has invited Gerhard Schwartz to come to Genoa for a last tribute to his fallen comrades. For the research team, this is a solemn occasion.
Ja, on dive. I see. Yeah. My best friend in here. And remember my name. I understand. No, finish. Yes, genug. Okay? Genug. Do you want to go to the surface? Yes, okay.